in. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Ramones album. Their eighth studio album, Too Tough to Die, was released October of 1984, and it's the first Ramones record to feature Richie Ramone. Tommy Ramones comes back to produce with Ed Stasium, recorded at Media Sound Studios in New York. And MonteAMelnick is one and only our guest talking about this 40th anniversary. Can you believe it's 40 years already? Is part of it seems like kind of yesterday, and part of it seems like
Well, it's actually
two lives
40,
ago.
40 years from what? I mean, it's 50 years for the first Ramones song, for
Yeah.
first
No,
played.
I
But
mean just this album alone.
yeah, I get up in
This
the
is the
morning and
eighth
say, wow.
album. My God.
Yeah, it's time flies. You got to enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Well, the fact that all four original members have passed on is very sad.
It's a shame. It's really a shame, you know. They should. It was. I wish they were around to see this. You know.
Yeah. And I know famously there was kind of the warring factions between Joey and Johnny, and I know Linda had something to do with that. And we understand Johnny was very conservative, and he looked up to John Wayne and people like that, Ronald Reagan, and the rest of the guys were pretty liberal. You know,
Yeah. Well, Joey was liberal. I think CJ was in the middle. Dee Dee was lean middle to the right. You know.
okay.
But Joey was very liberal. But they didn't talk politics. That's why they stuck together for so long. You
Right?
know. If they did, they would have killed each other probably.
Yeah, yeah. There's on the road in the van. Are we at the point where people got headphones on and they're kind of listening to their own music, or
Yeah.
how did you pass the time on those long road trips?
Yeah. 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 They had their own little. You know, the Walkman came about and
Okay.
the visual radios. Initially, like John would start listening to the baseball game on the van radio or something. That would drive people crazy. So he brought a little transistor with an earpiece and listened that way for a while. You know.
Yeah. I mean, if some people think baseball is boring enough, but just listening to it and I ain't watching it, oh my God. It's like watching paint or listening to paint dry.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, would you often drive? Were you the driver on a lot of this? Or
Well,
did
you
you
know,
have a driver?
we started different things. We in early years we had I did a lot of driving. Then we tried a few tour buses, you know, but they were
Okay.
very expensive, and you had to sleep
Yeah.
on the bus, and they didn't like sleeping on the bus. I didn't like sleeping on the bus. It's very expensive. You had to put, pay
Oh
for the
yeah.
travel.
And look at the cost of tour buses today. It's
Yeah,
over $1,000 a day, easy.
in Europe we didn't have sleeper buses because it was a little closer in Europe. You can get from country to country quicker there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I didn't wouldn't drive in Europe. We'd have buses in Europe, but in the United States, after we tried a few tour buses, we developed a little system where we do sections of the country. We do like the West Coast, so we have the crew drive out the van to the West Coast. We fly out there and meet the van, and
Okay.
the crew would have like a RV, or later on they actually had a tour bus crew. It was funny because in Lollapalooza we'd pull in the van, and all of a sudden the crew pulls into a tour bus because they slept on the bus and they had to be there early and late to break
Yeah.
down. But people would say, when it was laughing, and we'd pull up in the van and the crew would come in a tour bus. So we developed these little tours, like we do the West Coast for a couple of weeks in the
Little
van.
legs of the tour.
Yeah, and the crew would be in a little RV or a small bus or something. And I do most of the driving. Then later on, I got some assistants to do some of the driving. But I did the bulk of the driving. I did a lot of it. But later on, I got an assistant.
Okay.
Gene the cop was one of them, and Warren Cohen was another one who helped us out.
Now, were you one of these guys that grew up in the city of New York and hadn't really driven much, but somehow you kind of adapted to it?
No, I was. We grew up in Queens. We had cars out there.
Okay. So we used to driving, a couple
Yeah,
hours here, a few
yeah.
hours there.
I was used to drive. I was a good driver.
Okay.
The thing the early time they wouldn't like to stay over like in Boston. There was like 220 miles. We'd do the show and we'd have to drive back to New York. Oh,
In the middle of the night.
yeah. I was of course younger and I had things to help me stay awake. So
Yeah.
It was all right.
So
But
you could kind of sleep in the next day, but
it
they
was a
didn't want to.
grind. It
They
was
didn't
a
want to
grind.
stay there. They wanted to
But
get the
late,
hell out of there.
but later on, when we did these van tours, I got an assistant, a couple assistants to do the driving, which is great.
Now, now I know famously on Santa Monica Boulevard, west of the Starwood, just south of the whiskey and all that, was an infamous hotel called the Tropicana.
Yeah.
And infamous was definitely the word. There was a lot of groupies and drug dealers and weird people hanging around the Tropicana. And did you guys like the Tropicana, or did
Yeah.
Johnny and some of the guys said, "Man, we got to get out of here. Can't stay too long in Tropicana." Dee and the fringe element is getting thick around here.
No, it was a matter of money. But the first time we went to LA, we stayed at Sunset Marquis,
Okay.
which was great.
Oh yeah.
And then, budget wise, that was where you had to go because of the price and stuff. They had the great Dukes was down there.
Duke's, yeah.
That would made it
Duke's
staying great.
restaurant, yeah.
But in the early years, it's okay. It was seedy but that's what you do when you work your way up. Then later on, we stayed at the Hyatt House, the Riot House, the Hyatt.
Oh wow.
Stayed there a few times, and we stayed at La Park once or twice.
Oh my
So
God.
we stayed, but the early years, the Tropicana was, because of the price and stuff.
Yeah, I did a gig one time with Jack Cassidy, who was from the Jefferson Airplane. He had a new wave band, SVT, and I was supposed to interview him between them getting into town and the gig at the Starwood. And I go over to talk to him at the hotel or the motel, and he says, "Man, as soon as we pulled in, we went to grab a quick nap, and we come out, and somebody had stolen all our gear out of the van." And I swear that they were like inside jobs. There were probably junkies that, would scour the parking lot and tip off somebody that, hey, the band just pulled in. Looks like they're in their rooms, and they would empty those vans out in a matter of minutes of
We had
thousands
a
and
truck
thousands of
stolen.
gear.
We had a truck stolen in LA. We were staying
Yeah.
at the Holiday Inn on the Hollywood.
Wow.
And the idiot crew forgot to put in, like, we had these bars through the wheels.
Uh-huh.
They forgot to put it in. They stole the whole truck. That was a nightmare because we had a show coming up. It's coming up quickly. So I had to go in and buy every single piece of equipment. Try to think, from strings that they took the guitars up to the room, luckily.
Okay. But all the amps, the drums,
Yeah,
everything
drums,
was in that
everything. Oh
truck.
my God. And I had to go to like
And of course,
Guitar
even if
Center.
people find the truck, it's empty.
Yeah, Guitar Center. It was just
It's
some
like
of
a
the
chop shop. They
yeah,
they dump the gear and dump the truck.
some of the cases were there, road cases. That was it. That was a nightmare.
Was that the Holiday Inn that had the revolving restaurant on the top of it? You remember that?
It was up on Hollywood Boulevard,
Yeah,
off of Hollywood
Highland and
Boulevard.
Hollywood. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
just
We
north,
never. Yeah,
right down from the Hollywood Bowl there.
yeah, yeah.
And they used to have a restaurant on the top that revolved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a number of the Holiday Inns had that throughout the country.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. 40th anniversary, Too Tough to Die, the iconic cover. Man, what can we say? Dee Dee, Joey, Johnny, and Richie on this one. But hats off to Marky and Tommy. I know you got them all on the cover of your book. There is a little bit of a family tree to the Ramones, but those original four will always be thought as the iconic four. It's kind of like the Rolling Stones, the founders of the band, and then there's been member changes since then. But yeah, like I say, the influence continues to grow. They're putting together the 30th anniversary of the Warp Tour right now. I know Kevin Lyman and everybody involved. I know Arturo. I interviewed him, who created of course, the logo and so
There's
much of
another
the
one
imagery.
that was a shame that passed away. He was numero uno Ramones fan,
Who is this?
Arturo Vega.
Oh, Arturo, of course.
Really
No, I
huge.
interviewed him in a
He
little
was there
tent.
from the beginning. Actually, if he was still around, Arturo and myself are the only person. Well, I'm the only one left alive that was there from the beginning to the end.
Do you
And
remember
for
when
Arturo,
do you remember when he showed that logo to the band, or did somebody suggest it before he drew it up? What was the
No, we were in
timeline of that logo?
we were in Washington D.C. and Arturo is a great artist and stuff, and saw an idea there and brought it to the band and said, "Look, let's develop this." And he developed the whole thing.
That's the symbol right off of money, right? That's like the dollar bill.
It's actually the presidential seal.
Presidential seal.
Now he's such a big fan of the Ramones, huge fan. If you look in the back, he had it tattooed on his back.
Wow.
That's a dedicated Ramones fan.
Yeah,
So he was
that's
there
some
from the
pain.
beginning. Then he was there from the beginning to the end, all the way to the end. Oh, great lighting director, great artist. Had some great ideas and did the merchandising, did the T-shirts and stuff. There's a bunch. If you read my book, I talk about the T-shirts and Arturo in the book, stuff like that.
Well, there's a lot of unsung heroes in the story of the Ramones, and we're speaking to one right now. It is MonteAMelnick. Monte, we appreciate talking to you as always. We look forward to celebrating the 40th and hopefully the 50th anniversary of this and many more records. Of course, Animal Boy coming up 2 years from now. But all of these albums, Rocket to Russia, Road to Ruin, Ramones Leave Home, Ramones, the title, self-titled debut. They're all classics, and we know they get played on the radio now all over the world, no matter the different forms. Sirius XM has various shows, and there's bands as we speak that are playing Ramones covers or Ramones influenced songs of their own.
Well,
Monty, always a pleasure.
my thing is that the Ramones, they're so big now. People say Stones, Beatles, Ramones in the same breath, which is amazing. So I tell this joke this the thousandth time. I'll tell it again. If the Ramones were this big, I would have gotten a big raise when I
They're
was
kind
working
of
for them.
they're kind of like the
The
Beatles of their era in a way, you
Ramones
know?
were this big when I was working for them. I would have gotten a big raise.
Yeah. Everybody would have been able to live a little easier, and Dee Dee's headstone at Hollywood Forever would be a little bigger, no question about it. Well, we're going to go down and visit
Right.
them at Hollywood Forever and all these great landmarks here in California. And we look forward to sometime soon coming out to New York and look forward to your tips on where these locations are, performance studios, and of course, where CBGB's and all these media sound and all these great
I
places
also give a
were.
little tour in Queens about. I show where they grew up.
Oh, wow.
There's a great Ramones mural in the Forest Hills, and I
Okay.
show there's where Tommy grew up and Joey grew up, and
How many locations are in that tour?
about 6, 7.
Okay. Okay.
Forest Hills High School, the sign and all that. So I do a little tour sometimes. I do that. In
Does the school recognize any of the alumni? Is there like a Hall of Fame or a
I've
little
never been
photo
inside.
gallery?
Yeah, I've never been inside, but they let them name the street in front of it the Ramones Way, which that's great. Ramones Way, I like that.
That is.
They let them name the street in front of this high school.
That is awesome. Well, I'm going to go watch Rock and Roll High School. I'm going to crank up some Ramones, and we'll
Okay,
be in touch, Monty. It's a
definitely.
pleasure as
Good talking to
always.
you.
Thank you so much.
Gabba gabba hey.